And you would say, well, how do you carry on? But the point, of course, is that you look out there and I say, all of you could be doing just as well as I'm doing. And then you say, well, that's okay. It's really just a conversation. And at that level, I can kind of cope. It's not a lecture in which I set myself up to tell you something and I'm assuming you don't know. I'm assuming you all know far more than I know. Now that brings me to the next really important thing, which is when I look out at the audience, you are actually all the converted. In other words, you're actually none of the people I want to talk to. And this is an enormous problem because you go to something like the festival, say the Architecture Film Festival, for example. Oh, okay, right. So you go to something like the Architecture Film Festival, and there in the audience are all the people who don't need to see the film. And when you look, who should be there? Everybody from local government should have been there. Everybody from government should have been there. And of course, none of them are. So this raises a really interesting question which I want to explore tonight, which is, why are none of the other people here? And that then, of course, is one of the other things about growing older, is that you also get into storytelling, because you no longer have to convince anybody about anything. It's all too late. Like if you'd have been in 30 years ago, I'd have been in like a dog convincing you about things. But now, sorry folks, it's all too over. So at this stage, you just tell stories. So that when I see Graham down there, for example, now in a Maori context, the first thing you do is you always declare people, because people are important. So when I see Graham, or any of you for that matter, you're all equally important. But when I see Graham, I think of storytelling. Graham this morning said, oh, here we go again. They're going to do over volcanic sightlines. And I thought, another campaign, out we go. And so what's my favourite volcano story? Well, if I go back to the earliest days of fighting for Auckland's volcanoes, which was before anybody had thought of sightlines, they came much later, before the Volcanic Society was formed. And so there was this developer who was going to put this huge building up on the line, actually, between my office at the university and Mount Eden. Now, I took exception to this. And those were the days when you actually had to be affected. You had to be an affected party in order to participate in a planning hearing. And so I was very lucky because nobody from the Environment Court thought to come and have a look at from my office to see if it was actually true or not. So I got away with that one. So then I roll into the hearing, and of course here's my woolly jumper, and everybody else is in suits looking incredibly superior. And I was going to say, look, sorry, I've got the wrong place. But I thought, no, you always go down guns blazing. When you go, this is the thing about growing old, you see, you say, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. You can like it or you can not like it, but that's okay, the way I feel. So I stood up and did the biggest speech for volcanoes that probably has ever been heard in Auckland. Sat down and thought, well, that was a classic wasted morning this afternoon. It was a great spiel on volcanoes, but it won't have changed the world, because we're actually after changing the world. And then after I sat down, this little voice piped up at the back, and this guy said, can I say something? And the judge looked down his very long nose, and he said, this is a formal hearing, and unless you're party to the hearing, I'm afraid you can't say anything. We do not allow objections from the public gallery. And then he thought for a minute, and he said, who are you? And this guy said, well, I'm actually the developer who's paying for all these lawyers here. And the judge thought for a minute and said, what did you want to say? And he said, well, I've just listened to Tony's evidence. And until I came into the courtroom this morning, I thought everybody was going to love my building. And now I have realised, after listening to the evidence, that everybody is actually going to hate my building. And I would like to fire my architects right now. And on Monday morning, I'll be looking for a new firm of architects. And I think we may as well all go home. And the judge thought for a minute or two, and then he said, actually, I agree, I think we should all go home. So we did. This is the story from Graham. You say, what on earth's that got to do with tonight? Well, nothing in particular, except it's all about stories. You see, so this is the way it goes. So this is what is the great plus of getting older. So what I want to do that is talk about the actual process of building. And so what obviously you need to do if you're playing this game is you go right back to fundamentals. And so my contention would be that right at the moment, the built environment is an impossible shambles. And I think if we use David Longie's classic phrase, the time has come to pause for a cup of tea. And by that I mean, if you take what the universities are doing, they're having this incredible debate. It's completely irrelevant because they're asking all the wrong questions about all the wrong issues. And the real things are being ignored. And this is a huge dilemma because if you take the most fundamental question of all, it's about where does architecture start? Well, it doesn't start with the building. So the very first thing is your building really necessary? And if you're sitting out in the sun, this by the way is the artist, if you can't make the connection, that's what she does. That's not when she was producing this, that's a separate event, but this is the gap in between. And so if you're sitting there like that, and you've got all this wonderful bush, and you've got pigeons, and you've got tuis, and you've got sunshine, you've got kauri trees, you've got breezes, you've got scents, what do you need a building for? Now, who in society is going to ask that question? Because if you go and ask an architect, the architect says, you got a problem? The answer is a building. There's a fundamental flaw in this, which is if you start life dealing with problems, you're never, ever going to get on top of it. Because every problem you solve produces 5 new problems, at least. So it's a gigantic slide downhill. And that's the process we're in the middle of at the moment. So the reason none of the people are here who I really want to talk to tonight is because they're all out there solving problems. What they need to do is stop and they need to ask, how much do you actually need? And an even more fundamental question, does the building get in the way of the experience? So if you've got a day like today, and you've been sitting inside, all I can say is I feel really sorry for you. Because what you could have been doing today, you only need an umbrella because the sun is too bright. You get on this isn't for you women here, because this is the chef, is the guy up there with the frying pan. So the guy does the fantastic omelettes, he's amazing. And so all we do is spread out there on the beach, bit of purple colour, few great pots. Where's the building? Like everything else the architect does is going to run us downhill. So this takes me back to another great campaign. We actually won this campaign. This is a Bromhead cartoon that he did for me at the stage when we were opposing the 36-storey NZI building, which was going to cast a shadow right across Albert Park. And so a crowd of us took them to task over that, and we actually won that case, which was, some of you probably, if you've ever walked down the bottom side of Albert Park and you wonder why there's some parking buildings there that look as though something wasn't finished. Well, it wasn't finished. They didn't put the extra 30 stories on the top because we got that knocked off in the Environment Court. And occasionally they keep conning the council into saying, let us finish the building. But all I can say is you all have to be out there. And so that's why I put up this to encourage you to say you can win. It's really important. Increasingly at the moment I'm surrounded by people who say, I know there are all these issues, but I can't possibly win. You can win. And it's more profound than that. You've actually got to win. There's no such thing as giving up. Don't give up. Go down guns blazing. And if you take that as a process, and we take a brilliant cartoon that Graham here actually sent to me by email, in fact, thank you, but it's actually by courtesy of Luning, it's not a Graham cartoon. But it's this idea that buildings always improve things. And I love this as a Luning cartoon. And by the way, Luning keeps my touch of sanity. If any of you don't know Luning, then discover Luning. Luning is just amazing because only Luning would say how you start off this wonderful world with all the complexity, the intricacy, the wonderful patterns, all those things. And then what you do is you end up beating it, like these are the architects beating it order, and you end up sitting in this little box down there at the bottom, and no wonder the world's miserable. I mean, architecture is made to make people miserable. And so what we've got to do is ask ourselves, how do we get around this? Well, if we take this is the, oh, by the way, I'm not intending tonight to read any of the text for this, but I have actually been really rash. I produced a book which is the whole of tonight's lecture, and so if there's anything that you see here that you want to read, you can actually have a look at this afterwards, and all of the things which I'm not going to go through are all in this book, so it's one of the ones down the back, but it's not for sale. It's too, gee, I'll probably get sued for libel if you spread this around the town, but anyhow, that's all right. I'm going to take the risk of telling you what's in the book. So this is the experimental building. Now we actually got a permit to put a 8-foot wide link and single-storey high between two houses down on Wynyard Street. Well, by the time the students had finished building, you couldn't see the houses in Wynyard Street. They were completely lost in this amazing structure which went all over the place. And that was where all the students were whipping down, sitting their exams, and then they'd do a lecture and they'd come up and they'd knock together a bit of timber and everything else. And of course, by the end of the year, they'd learned nothing from the lectures, they'd learned nothing from the exams, but wow, had they learned a lot out of the structure they built. And above all else, it was theirs. They had made it, they were proud of it, and they didn't care what anybody else thought about it. They had learned some of the most basic lessons about building. You've got to love it, you've got to live it, and what I want to stress tonight, you've got to do it. There's no point in telling anybody that you can buy it. You can't buy it. No matter how much you pay, you can never buy a building that's your own. You've actually got to make it your own. And so one of the most fundamental things is that change is always brought around by individuals. Institutions always oppose change. This is just the way